Hey, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Reputation Igniter podcast. We are so grateful for you being here. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode that we drop. And if you feel so inclined, writing a review on your favorite podcast platform always means the world to us. Today, I am really excited to have Rob Holmes from Forge Now. Rob, thanks so much for being here with us.
My pleasure, Chris.
And the reason I brought Rob on is because, as you know, the Reputation Igniter podcast, maybe this is the first time that you're joining us, we are all about helping you understand the resources that are available out there as an HVAC contractor, doing the incredible things that you're doing in our community. And as I like to refer to the fact that the mainstream media seems to be demonizing entrepreneurs for God knows what reason over the last decade or so, the hope here is to give you a little bit of light, some camaraderie, a little bit of an attaboy, and just continue to encourage you to serve our communities like you are doing so faithfully, to provide for your employees and as well your family, and just say that we so appreciate everything that you're doing, and we just want to equip you better to be better prepared to continue to scale, to serve, to do all these wonderful things that you set out to when you started your company. And so I'm always trying to bring on leaders onto this podcast, and thus we've got Rob here, who I'm super excited to dive into. But more importantly, we're trying to bring on other HVAC contractors just like yourself, so that they can tell their story and kind of we can tap into their zone of genius, so that you're actually getting people from the field that are actually doing these things, implementing these things, so that the advice that you're getting is not a bunch of marketing speak about things that could go or you should do, but instead things that are being done and are working out there. And so the reason I brought Rob on here is that he has an incredible company, an organization called Forge Now, where Rob, you can totally correct me here in a minute, but in about 7 weeks' time, they will give an apprentice level training of 2 years to somebody who is, and this is where our sort of connection comes from, is veterans, maybe sort of college false starts, and then people that have been formerly incarcerated, right? And so it's literally taking somebody from kind of zero to hero so that they can be in your business in a very short time span. And he's solving one of the biggest problems in our industry, which, by the way, I think I had a podcast episode, last one, we were just talking about the fact that like personnel and good quality employees is like always an issue, right? So like the fact that it's like now this big thing is like, no, it's always been an issue finding good talent. So with that, Rob, let's jump in. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just giving us a little bit of like a Reader's Digest version, kind of, where you started and then how you got here into HVAC and what you're doing now.
Well, I realized that I had gone to a trade school. In fact, you and I both went to a trade school, Chris. Yeah. As a graduate of West Point, and you're a graduate of the Naval Academy, we were given a trade. We were given skills, and we got our college degree. We got our bachelor's degree. But we also knew we had a career path upon graduation. And, as you think about all the stuff you read these days about college and the cost and the time and then the debt and then what happens afterward, we just looked at this opportunity and said, this is something where we can have a real generational impact, because the country needs the trades. And we founded Forge Now with the vision to have a generational impact, to launch careers and change lives. We're about to train our 1,000th graduate. Wow. And as you said, our programs are 7 weeks long. They are focused on the traditional trades of heating and cooling, electrical, plumbing, and facilities maintenance. It's a full-time program. And as you said, what we're trying to do is take 2 years of on-the-job training and produce a tech in 7 weeks that has that level of apprentice level skills. So we're excited about what we're doing. We've had over 100 different employers, many in North Texas, but also across the country, that have hired our graduates, and they've had a great experience. You mentioned a couple of the groups of folks that we get our candidates from. No question, service members, veterans is a big portion of who we train. We are eligible for the GI Bill through the Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs. We are also Department of Defense Skill Bridge eligible. That's a program where during the last 180 days of a service member's enlistment, they can go on temporary duty and get skills training. So while they're still on active duty, while they're still
Wow.
getting paid by the military, they can come to us as they're finishing their service, and they can go through our program, get skilled up, and then when they do leave service, they can go right into their career. But we train all walks. We train all walks. Another group that you mentioned are college fall starts. You see different stats on this, but generally the graduation rate for a bachelor's program is about 50%.
Mm.
So half the folks that pursue that don't finish, and they figure that college wasn't for them, or whatever responsibilities that they may have had, and they want to get into the trades. So, that's an exciting group where we're able to kind of launch them into a career path a lot faster than they were headed. So the underemployed, the folks that are working hard, folks that are working a couple of jobs, they're driving a forklift, they're working security, they're driving for Lyft, they're working, but they need skills, and they come to us, and we train them up and get them on their way.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'd never thought about our experience at the academy as being a trade school, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that was a very vocational sort of. Yes, there was regular sort of academic, rigor involved, but to your point, like we learned a craft, right, and then we executed on that. And so it's kind of a cool mindset. I hadn't really thought about that, but so, and I think this is kind of important and I like, maybe I just like this because I'm a veteran, right? Is that just real quick? Again, we're not trying to sell this service, but I think it's a great option for people, and we can talk about how people can kind of partner with you in the end. Tell me a little bit about why you developed the program the way that you did, not just the 7 weeks, but one of the things you kind of told me that kind of hit me was the fact that you don't have AC in the building. So, when people are there, they're either working when it's cold or they're working where it's hot, so they can get the experience of that, right? So it's not like they're in an AC training facility and then they go out into the real Texas heat and then they're all of a sudden going, oh man, I don't know if I can do this business, right? And then the other part that, some of the vernacular that you're using around, it being a training center versus, various stuff like that. And then the other piece where people are expected to show up at 7 a.m. It's run like a boot camp. And as a result, you get people coming out with a certain sense of discipline, which I think is probably one of the things that most, people listening are concerned about when they're hiring somebody new, right? Not only is the skill set there, but also it's like, all right, what about the personality traits that are important to be successful long-term in the trades when somebody's hiring? So if you could maybe just touch on some of that, and then let's talk about, we'll talk about some issues around hiring and maybe some best practices that you've kind of seen out there. So yeah, if you don't mind sharing.
Marvin Key is my co-founder, my business partner. He and I, when we started this, we started talking to employers. Mm-hmm. We wanted to work our way back to the student. We started with employers, and what contractors told us is that they need the talent now. They are turning business away because they don't have techs to do the work. They need them to understand the basics. They can learn the rest, but they got to understand the basics. But I got to have the talent right now. So when we designed the program, we tried to have the essentials to get to an apprentice level competence. But we also, in talking to employers, they talked to us not only how hard it was to get talent, they talked about how hard it was to keep talent. Mm. And people would leave for all kind of reasons. When you hire somebody off the street corner, a few months later, they come to the boss and they say, look, I didn't know I had to be at work at 7 a.m. I didn't know I had to wear a uniform. I didn't know that I had to work all day long in the heat. I didn't know I had to work all day long in the cold. I didn't know I had to crawl through attics. I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we copied the military format. You and I were both taught, you train how you fight. Yep. Athletes are taught, you practice how you play. So we built a program with a culture and an ethos about train how you fight. So we start our training at 7 a.m. because in the real world, in the trades, you get up early and you go to work. We put everybody in a complete uniform. One reason for that is safety. because when you hire somebody off the street corner, they don't have work boots. They don't have utility trousers. They don't have the basics. But a big part is we want to make sure they've got a professional appearance, because that's what the employer is going to expect. And we want them to feel like they're a part of something, no different than a sports team or the military. So everybody's in a complete uniform. We're very particular about our terminology. President Reagan said that words mean things. So, we don't call it class, we call it training. We don't have a campus, we have a training center. We don't have students, we have candidates or trainees. We don't have teachers, we have instructors or trainers. We're very particular about that. And we train for a full day. We go from 7 to 4 in the afternoon, because in the real world, you work a full day. We take attendance twice a day. We make sure you're there at 7 a.m. We make sure you're there at 4 in the afternoon. We give people grades on their testing every week. And if you don't pass, you don't advance, because in the real world, there are consequences. You can miss no more than 10% of the training, because you need to show up. If you miss more than 10%, we have to dismiss you. So we run the program like a business. And what we're finding is the employers love this, because for the last 7 weeks, they've had candidates that have shown up on time, on task, in uniform at 7 a.m., and they've worked a full day. The first day, we put the candidates on the roof. We're going to find out if you're scared of heights day one. We don't climate control our lab. When it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, it's cold. We try to get as much time as possible in the lab. We do the first couple of weeks with safety, tools, terminology. They go through their EPA testing. They go through their OSHA training. But as quickly as possible, we get past the concept and we get into the application of the lab. They've got their hands on the equipment. They're working in teams. They have lab techs that are assisting them. But it goes back to the military. It does training really, really well. And that's about equip, train, credential, and place. So we train how we fight. We practice how we play. And now when an employer hires our graduate, they've got somebody that has shown that they can be a professional for the past 7 weeks.
Love it. Love it. So many intentionality behind, as you said, and instead of just maybe a vocational school that they might go to at high school, and attendance is somewhat mildly mandatory or stuff like that. So I love what you're doing there. So and it's awesome how you went to the employer and said, hey, obviously, you're the one that we're providing the service for, in a way, and then working your way back to solving all those solutions, right? Instead of just training up a bunch, throwing them out, getting feedback, instead you went right to the source to understand it. So for you, maybe you can shed some light on, a lot of employers say that they feel that they have this heartache. What do you say, or what have you found maybe that is driving a lot of that, so that maybe people can understand it, and then they can kind of maybe just from a mindset move past it, right? Realizing that there are solutions like yourself out there that they can find. What would you say is usually kind of holds most people back from maybe hiring or taking that step? You kind of alluded to the fact that getting them one's thing, getting them trained is another thing, getting them sort of assimilated to just working in the trades is another piece, and then just having the requisite sort of training. Anything that you're finding pretty consistently out there?
Well, part of it is just finding the talent acquisition, and because we have gone through all of the hurdles, all of the approvals to become a legitimate program. We are an accredited school with the U.S. Department of Education through an accrediting agency called ASSET. So we are an accredited school, similar to other institutions out there. I mentioned earlier, we're eligible for the GI Bill through the VA. We're eligible for the DoD Skill Bridge program through Defense. So, we've gone through all that employers don't have time to do. And what that's done is it gives us access to, I'll call it raw talent, that every month are leaving service because they finished their enlistment. We have a recruiting force, an admissions coordinating force that is embedded in military installations across the United States. So as far as just bringing in the raw material, we've got resources now in place that employers simply don't have. But again, we're not just for the military. We train. You have to be 18 years old. You have to have a high school diploma or a GED. And we really think you ought to have a driver's license because the employer is going to expect that. So we'll train the false starts. We'll train the underemployed. You touched on a group earlier that we have also trained, which is the justice involved, those who have had some type of problem in their past, and that limits some of their opportunities going forward. But once we give them skills and train them up, these are people that are looking for a second chance. And there are lots of employers out there that are willing to give people that second chance because they know how hard they're going to work. We've trained new Americans, people that are here new to our country, and they're looking to contribute in some manner. So we're able to bring the raw material to the table. And then in a 7-week period, we're able to spin them up as far as their skills. We also issue them a complete set of tools. It's about $1,000 worth of tools. It's part of the program because typically when an employer hires somebody, they don't have any tools. So now the employer has to go buy the tools. And maybe they take it out of their paycheck or they do some kind of program with them. So we're going to deliver that tech after 7 weeks to an employer who has been equipped, trained, and credentialed with their basic credentials. Within our HVAC program, it's the NATE credentials, along with EPA, OSHA, and then the TDLR here in Texas. So, that employer is able to hire someone who graduates our program on Friday. That employer can hire him and put him to work on Monday. And he is ready to go on missions, most likely with a teammate. He's an apprentice. But he's able to go on missions with a complete set of tools, having just worked the past 7 weeks from a 7 to 4 workday. So, why would employers not do that? Typically, it's capital. Typically, it's when they tell us that they typically lose 50% of their talent each year. Yeah, and that's really hard to go invest in somebody knowing that half the time you're going to lose them. So with our program, we've already vetted a lot of the reasons that employers lose people. So when you hire a Forge Now graduate, you're not going to have that same attrition experience that you have with the person off the street corner that you hire. So it's a better bet when you hire a Forge Now graduate. But it's such a fragmented business, and all of your viewers who are in the business, they know this, but just in North Texas, you have over 4,000 HVAC contractors. They generate $2 billion in revenue. So the average contractor generates $500,000 of revenue. A well-trained tech should drive about $250,000 of revenue. So the average contractor at $500,000 of revenue is 2 techs. That's the average. So you have the big players, but on average, the market out there is a 1 truck, a 1 van contracting business with 2 techs. That's the average market. Well, if that tech is generating $250,000, let's say you've got a 40% margin on that, you're bringing in $100,000 for that tech. Yeah. Our program is $12,000. So for $12,000, you can train someone, you can sponsor someone, which means they work for you after graduation. And you're going to make that money back in a couple of months. You'll have that back in a couple of months if that tech is generating about $250,000 a year. So from an employer standpoint, the value is irrefutable. But I understand how it can still be, kind of scary because, the money goes, one way or another if you put it toward the tech, and what if he leaves? Well, that's always going to be a risk. But again, when you hire a Forge Now tech, you're going to have someone who's more than likely, they know what they're getting into, they're better trained, they're going to be a bigger contributor faster for you. So we have different programs with employers. They're all different ways that people pay for their training. Again, we'll go back to the service members. They've earned their GI Bill benefits, so that's a currency that they have that they can put toward the training, and then they can go to work for wherever they want and for whomever they want. We have folks that they pay just through cash. They pay through a check. They pay the tuition, and again, that gives them the freedom to go work for whoever they want to afterward. But on the other hand, we also have employers who sponsor candidates. They say, I've got to have the talent. I've got to have the talent. And for $12,000, I'm willing to pay for that talent. So I'm going to sponsor a candidate and he works for me after graduation. Awesome. And we can help with that. There are all different ways that we can work through that with that employer. If he says, I need somebody in Central Texas, terrific. Let's see if we can, find a candidate who wants to be there. Or if I need somebody in Oklahoma, great. We can work on that too. So we try to help the candidate find what's best suited for them, but we also have an increasing emphasis on the employer because that's how the industry grows and that's how these employers are able to grow their business. They got to have talent.
Yeah. Well, two things really hit me there, Rob, that you mentioned, right? I imagine that a lot of people, sometimes feel like they're, fishing in the ocean right now with a net in hand, right? And that they're just trying to, net any fish that comes by. And, hopefully it's not too big or it's not too heavy or whatever the case may be. And they can kind of, bring it into the boat versus kind of what you're doing is, trawling with, outriggers, and you've got multiple lines in the water and you can go really deep, right? And you can catch more fish, right? And so, I think most of them are probably like, hey, do you guys know a tech? Or, they're trying to just kind of get the word out maybe verbally. And it's a loose sort of, effort towards putting that out. On top of that, to your point, although you maybe have somebody that'll vouch for them, it's not necessarily the best sort of like evaluation or litmus test to whether or not they're going to stay long term. And so essentially, like you're saying, your talent pool is shallow and limited just based on the, places that you're able to bring in new talent. And so what you guys have done is obviously gone out and ferreted all these different sort of rabbit holes that you can kind of go down. And you've led breadcrumbs back to your guys' facility, which I think is just absolutely fascinating that, there are so many resources, like you said, that you can get further to that source of the raw talent. And then not only that, but you also remove a lot of the headache. This is the second piece, is like of the vetting process, right? And you're not looking for somebody with $12,000 in their hand, right? You're looking for somebody that, although that's nice, there's also solutions that you can overcome that, provided they have a certain sort of set of, maybe soft skills or, mindset or whatever the case may be, so that, taking that down, you're also vetting them and they have to make it through a certain, process. I mean, similar to our experience in the military, right? Like what is boot camp all about? It's just to weed out the people that aren't probably a good fit, right? And not everybody is, and that's totally okay. And that's nothing against those people. It's just like, hey, wouldn't it be better to find out now on day one when you're up on a roof and you're scared of heights, and we can kind of, address that before, you're doing it in a situation that's probably even a little less safe than it is currently here. So, man, what a shortcut in a sense for these employers, right? And a breath of fresh air, knowing that, like, hey, it's almost a bit of a blue ocean, I would imagine, to be able to tap into the resources that you guys have created. So that's absolutely fantastic. What, if somebody is trying to scale up their business, is wanting to bring on tech, right? What are the things that an HVAC contractor can be doing on their side of the fence, right? There's obviously plugging into you guys are doing all this kind of stuff, but like, even them, what is the best way to kind of prep themselves to maybe onboard new talent after it's maybe come through a program like yours, or they brought it to maybe enhance retention? Because obviously that's the other side of this coin, right? First is talent acquisition or exposure to it. And then the other piece is retention. What have you found are kind of the hallmarks of good retention in that case?
Well, again, I'll draw on our shared experience in the military.
Yeah.
You got to take care of the troops, and this is as competitive a labor market as we've seen in our careers. So you got to take care of the troops. Well, what does that mean? Well, again, with our graduates, they're already showing up with tools. They're already showing up with their basic credentials. They're already showing up with even some of their PPE, their equipment, their work boots, those kind of things. So are there other things that the employer can do? What we encourage employers to do is really develop that relationship while they're in training with us. During those 7 weeks, develop the relationship. Show up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and bring pizzas. Because here's what we have found. When an employer sponsors somebody and that candidate starts talking to his classmates to his left and his right, and he says, oh yeah, I already got a job. I already have a job upon graduation. Yeah, I'm working for this great company, and in fact, they're bringing pizzas this afternoon. Well, guess what? Other people in the class, they want to talk to that employer also.
Yeah.
So things like that. Be a guest speaker. We love having guest speakers. So come during training and talk about how you got into the trades and how you built your business and what you're trying to do with your business. We love having guest speakers. Well, guess what? Now you're going to have people coming up afterwards saying, I'd like to come work for you. So, be proactive and really go after the talent. We're going to give you somebody who has been equipped, trained, and credentialed and has proved that he can go to work 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 7 to 4. He can climb on rooftops. He can climb through attics. He can work in the conditions. So it's a great market to come, as opposed to, you find that one guy in the street corner that now you got to issue him tools. Now you got to put him in a uniform. Now you've got to, start from zero with them. And that guy, 50% of the time, is going to split after a few weeks. Yeah. So what we found is, the return on investment for the employer is just a no-brainer. And as scary as it might sound, when employers start forking out cash, well, instead of one, you're going to end up hiring 3. In that one that you sponsored, he just became a recruiter for you in the class. So you start looking at that talent acquisition and the cost of acquisition, the cost of training, the cost of outfitting, all that. And instead of one tech that you're hiring, you end up hiring 3 or 4. So, it really scales rapidly. The other thing is there are some tax incentives in place. If you hire a veteran, you're going to get a tax credit. And depending on the service member's record, drives how much of that tax credit it is. There are tax credits out there if you hire someone who's been formerly incarcerated. So, again, you sponsor that one candidate for $12,000. You may get half of that back in a tax credit. You're already saving on about $1,000 worth of tools. And now if you end up hiring 3 people, well, now your cost of acquisition, your cost of training, your cost of credentialing is now $4,000, not $12,000. So, real quickly, you're able to see the return on your investment when employers work with us to sponsor candidates and then, hire as many as you want.
Yeah.
We're trying to grow the business.
Love it. Well, and to your point is how do you just paving that path towards building a stronger relationship, something that's more than just transactional, but somebody feeling included and involved. Have you found anything sort of like longer term, like once they're in the position, anything that maybe a couple of like do's, like maybe 3 different sort of things that can really lead to increased retention, right? Is that like, $1 an hour bonus at the 6-month mark? Is that a, bonus at the end of the year of X percentage or something? Like, have you found anything like that, like hard and fast kind of rules to kind of maybe, just warm up somebody's mindset too, as they're bringing on somebody to set aside some additional sort of resources?
Yeah. Again, this is the tightest labor market in our careers.
Yeah.
And, the axiom of carrots or sticks. I think with young people, particularly those that are ambitious enough to go through an intense 7-week program that we are, carrots probably work better for them than sticks. Yeah. So, putting some benchmarks out there that if you're still with me in 3 months, something good happens. If you're still with me in 6 months, something good happens. If you're with me for 2 years, something good happens. We encourage employers to be creative. Maybe it's continuing education. Maybe it's something where if the new hire, the Forge Now graduate, is with you for a year and he went through our HVAC program, maybe put him through the plumbing program. You know, if you're a contractor trying to grow and you might want to expand your business past just HVAC to include plumbing.
Yeah.
Well, you know, tell that new employee, that new hire, that look, if you stick with this, I'm going to keep investing in you because I'm getting a great return. So, you know, carrots probably more so than sticks. You know, you hear these stories about people, you know, jump into another company just for a couple dollars more. That happens. But if you can lay out a career path for the candidate and they feel that it's achievable, particularly with the service members, that's what they're used to. You know, they know how long it takes to go from, you know, private to specialist to sergeant to staff sergeant.
Yeah.
They generally know that. Laying out that career path for them that shows how they can start making more money, they can advance in their careers, you know, really try to lay that out for them because, you know, these guys are smart. And with everyone having a phone in their hand, they've got access to all the information. So, you know, really try to show them how you can have a long relationship with them and they can have a career with you.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. We really appreciate all the insights. I think if anybody's listening, hopefully they've got a newfound excitement around the idea of hiring and bringing on talent, as opposed to maybe the feeling of desperation and that there is no hope, but instead that now they understand that there are resources out there that can really extend their search for talent far and wide beyond maybe what would be brought in by somebody that's inside the business already or their limited network. So that's very comforting. Rob, if somebody did want to get a hold of you or reach out to you, want to get more information, you know, where's the best place to kind of connect, reach you?
ForgeNow.com. ForgeNow.com, just like it sounds. It has our catalog such that you can see, you know, what is being trained. So as an employer, you can really see the specifics of what they're going to learn. You're going to see our class dates. We start new cohorts each month, which means we're also graduating each month. So it's a constant flow of talent, and you can see when the class dates start and when the classes graduate. So ForgeNow.com is the best place to learn more. And again, we've got a team that works with employers that we can tailor solutions that are best for you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. We really appreciate it. That wraps up another episode of the Reputation Igniter podcast. Again, if you haven't done so, we would appreciate a like, a subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you make sure that you always get new and upcoming content, just like what we're dropping here with Rob, and writing a review, or better yet, just share it with one other HVAC contractor that you know. As we grow the audience, we provide more value. And as you know, everybody that's been on this has been a referral from my network and continues to be vetted by somebody else. So if you ever have any issues with them, just know that somebody else was vetting for them, and you know, I'll take that up with them. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we can't wait to see you on the next one. Take care for now. Bye.